Hey guys, Jay here, and this is my F1 fantasy team for the Monaco Grand Prix. Let's get into it. So, first of all, the Imola Grand Prix recap. Not a great weekend for me. Team 1 and Team 2 unfortunately dropped in ranking. That's being said, Team 3 though actually had a good result. So, Team 3 moving up into just within the top 75k. So, Team 1 and Team 3 way outperforming Team 2, and they're the ones that I'm hoping will start to climb the rankings over the next few weeks, especially Team 3 because they've still got all their chips. So what happened? Well, for Team 1, I had two transfers. So I transferred out Charles Leclerc for Franco Colapinto just to protect my budget, and then I brought in Mercedes for HAAS. So over the Friday and Saturday morning, my thought process went Mercedes, then it went to Red Bull because I wasn't liking Antonelli, but then I wasn't liking Red Bull because, if I remember correctly, Tsunoda had that crash. Then I was looking at Williams, but I thought I can see what's going to happen. I'll go Williams, and then they won't perform well, and Mercedes will. So I went with Mercedes. Unfortunately, that backfired because, actually, as you can see from this, my T3, where I did have Williams, completely outscored Mercedes. So for Team 1, not great, and I had to keep Behrman just because I only had two transfers and I wasn't prepared to take another 10-point hit. For Team 2, I used my wild card. I was trying to set up for Limitless in Monaco. I am still leaning towards Limitless in Monaco, but as you can see, Hadjar with 0.2 and Lance Stroll. Lance Stroll needed 1 point. He couldn't even get 1 point. So yeah, that backfired in that sense. So the transfers here was Mercedes for HAAS and Stroll for, I believe it's it's Mercedes for HAAS and I believe Colapinto for one of the HAAS drivers. And then for Team 3, I did have to go Williams because, again, only two transfers. So I brought in Stroll for Behrman. I could only afford Williams, which ended up paying off. But as you can see, I had to keep Ocon, who unfortunately had that DNF. That being said, Team 3 actually had the better weekend, scoring 190 points and getting 0.8 in budget. So, early thoughts. First of all, just want to quickly take you to the elite data and show you the chip usage for the Global 500 and Patreon 500. Because I think a lot of people had a bad weekend this weekend from what I've seen on the cooldown streams that various content creators have been doing. Thinking positively, look at it this way. In the Global 500, almost everyone has used their Limitless chip. Over a third have used their ×3 chip. A quarter have used their wildcard. And 40% have used their no negative, which means they've only got their final fix and their autopilot. Compare that to the Patreon 500, where just over 2/3 have used their Limitless, almost a quarter have used no negative, and a third have used wildcard. Which says to me that those in the Patreon 500 are saving on to those chips for down the line, especially autopilot and ×3, because those are best used when you've got two premium tier A drivers, as well as 2A constructors, ideally. So if you dropped in rank this week, if you're low on your luck and you've got all your chips still, then you have an advantage throughout the season. So let's look at the budget builder. For tier A, drivers wise, again, Oscar Piastri, it's a no-brainer, guaranteed for points and a price rise unless he DNFs. Not only that, but if we look at the elite data, he's currently picked by 94.8% in the Global 500, and 89% of those have him as their ×2, and 98.6% have Piastri in their team in the Patreon 500, with 96% having him as their ×2. That being said, Norris isn't too far behind. A -3 for a 1 point rise, or 25 points for a 0.3 rise. In terms of the constructors though, again, McLaren, it's a no-brainer, points and budget guaranteed. And again, if you go to the elite data, both the Global 500 and the Patreon 500, 99.8% own the McLaren constructor. So if you don't have the McLaren constructor, what are you doing? That being said, who do you put alongside McLaren? Now, obviously, a lot of us went with Mercedes this weekend, including myself. Unfortunately, Mercedes has now dropped down to the bottom of the tier A constructors. They need 10 points for a 0.1, which is kind of guaranteed, I would say, or at least doable. But 33 points for a 0.3 is a stretch. That being said, the big turnaround here is Red Bull. Red Bull scoring 71 points this weekend. They got 60 in Miami, and they're now shooing for points and price rise. We're looking at possible McLaren Red Bull builds for Monaco. So let's look at the B tiers. So for the drivers, we've got possibly 8 assets we could be looking at. So we're going to come back to that in just a sec. Looking at the constructors, to my point a minute ago regarding Mercedes to Red Bull, Williams were outstanding in Imola, and they are now pretty much guaranteed for a price rise, and they're bringing in points. Maybe not as many points as the likes of Red Bull and Mercedes overall over the season, but they are definitely on a lot of people's minds. A lot of people played Williams this weekend, which was a good call. Like I say, I did think about it, but I backed out. Did have them in Team 3, and it worked out for Team 3. So if you're not fully sold on either Red Bull or at a stretch Ferrari or Mercedes, Williams would be your alternative if you need a bit more budget, but if you just like the look of Williams more than you do of Red Bull and Ferrari. Kick, you could for a price rise, but they're not going to bring in any points. And Alpine, Aston, VCarb, and HAAS especially now are way out the window for me. So let's go back to the B tier drivers. So I want to break this down into 3 components. So we're going to go with cheap, affordable in quote marks, and then alternative. So cheap, we're looking at Nico Hülkenberg, Pierre Gasly, and Franco Colapinto. Nico Hülkenberg surprised me this weekend. I wasn't expecting him to get a price rise, but I believe he did. And he came away with 9 points, I believe. He needs a -1 for a 0.2 or 5 for a 0.6. Now with Monaco, as we know last year, it can be DNF territory, especially towards the back. But if that happens, then great, positions gained. So it's not out the realm of possibility. Personally though, let's look at the statistics, and we can see here that Hülkenberg's average is 3.4, which is under the 5 points. That being said, it was 2.5 before Imola, and yet he got the points and the price rise. So it's not impossible, but just something to bear in mind. Pierre Gasly now comes into the picture. 18 points in Miami. He only got 3 points in Imola, but those 18 points in Miami means he now comes into the picture. 0 points for a 0.2, 7 points for a 0.6. Again, looking at the statistics though, his average is only 1.4 this season because of the disqualification in China and his DNF in Saudi Arabia. That being said, we know he has the pace, we know he can perform, and I would definitely guarantee a 0.2 rise. Not sure about a 0.6, just because of Monaco being low for overtakes, but it is a compulsory 2-stop race, so he could get it on the positions gained if Alpine get their strategy correct. And then finally, Franco Colapinto. The only reason you'd have Franco Colapinto in team really, it's the same as Bortoleto. He's at the price floor, protects your budget, and that's the other reason why you'd have Colapinto. I don't expect a price rise at 9 or 11 points, but if you want to protect your budget, Colapinto is an option. Now, let's look at your affordable, but in quote marks. So these are the 3 most expensive, well, in this segment, they're the 3 most expensive, in fact they're the 3 most expensive B tier drivers that you could consider. First of all, we have Yuki Tsunoda, 33 points in Miami, which is and 9 points in Imola, brings him to the table. A -2 for a 0.2 rise, 11 points for a 0.6 rise. I like the look of this. I do like the look of this. Again, if we go to the statistics page, his average in a Red Bull is 9.4. So he does fall just short of the 11 points, but he's in a Red Bull. It's Monaco. Overtaking is hard. If he doesn't crash, provided he doesn't crash and has a good qualifying, he could be a very, very good pick. And I imagine he is in a lot of people's minds. That being said, I wouldn't rule off Alexander Albon, and I'm going to explain why in just a bit. But before I get to Albon, Lance Stroll, currently priced at 9.5. He needed a point in Imola, a point. He got a -2, so he lost 0.2 in budget. He now needs 3 points for a 0.2 and 12 for a 0.6. I'm saying this, I'm probably jinxing it. He's not getting 12 points. I'd be surprised if he gets 3. But again, compulsory 2-stop race, positions gained if the pit stop strategy is correct. So 3 points is possible. So I would say if you've got Stroll in your team and you've only got let's say you've only got 2 transfers, Stroll's in your team, but you need to get rid of like Behrman and Ocon. Get rid of Behrman and Ocon and keep Stroll, if that makes sense. And just for the sake of clarity, he is on, well, he's actually on the same as Tsunoda, 9.4 for average points scored this season, but that's because of the 25 points he scored in Miami. So, not completely ruling him off, but the fact he couldn't even get a single point in Imola, my trust value is very, very low. And we now come to Albon. So this links in with Yuki Tsunoda, what I was saying earlier. Albon needs 0 points for a 0.2, 12 points for a 0.6. He's in the Williams. Williams was, in my opinion, probably the second best constructor in Imola. Do I see him getting 12 points? I think it's definitely possible if he has a good qualifying and Williams have a good strategy. The one thing that makes me think of Albon over Tsunoda is his consistency. So he got 17 in Australia, 11 in China, 8 in Japan, 15 in Bahrain, 10 in Saudi Arabia, 19 in Miami, and 18 in Imola, compared to Tsunoda, who under the Red Bull constructor got 13 points in Japan, 9 in Bahrain, DNF in Saudi Arabia, which it was a racing incident in my opinion, 33 points in Miami, but bear in mind there was a sprint race that weekend, and 9 points in Imola. So for me personally, it's just more of a consistency factor as to why I would go for Albon over Tsunoda. That being said, it does all come down to the pace in practice, and it would be that would make me sway one way or the other. Finally, we do come to 2 alternatives, which is Isaac Hadjar and Carlos Sainz. Isaac Hadjar is in a lot of teams at the moment, but he is starting to lose a little bit of value. Not necessarily a bad thing, because as that value drops, he'll go towards the price floor, which means he'll then be likely to start going up again because he'll need less points, if my understanding is correct. That being said, he needs 9 points for a 0.2 or 14 points for a 0.6. I don't see him getting either at the moment. According to the statistics page, his average is 2.6 for the season. So I would say Hadjar is a bit of an anomaly at the moment, where let's say you've got the perfect team, but you do have Hadjar, then sure, offload Hadjar. But again, similar to the Stroll situation, if you've got Behrman, Ocon, Hadjar, get rid of Behrman and Ocon and keep Hadjar. And then finally, Carlos Sainz, who is now starting to find his form. He needs 14 points for a 0.2 and 22 points for a 0.6. I don't see him getting a 0.6. I don't put it out of the realm of possibility for a 0.2, but he's going to need a really good qualifying. He's going to need a really good race. And again, overtaking's hard, so it's going to have to be down to pit strategy or luck of a safety car, that kind of thing. That being said, he got 12 points in Imola, and Sainz Sainz's team went for a 2-stop strategy, which ended up backfiring. I remember during the race, Sainz was being told what Albon's pace was, and Sainz even said, so basically it's a 1-stop. So if the strategy didn't go wrong for Sainz in Imola, then he possibly would have scored more points. He even said in the questions afterwards that he felt the team had the pace to get like a P5, which ironically is what Albon got. But the thing I like about Sainz is we could think about him for Spain. We could bring him in early at Monaco, take that price hit, and have him for Spain, because I'm at that point now, especially, well, more with my Team 1, I'm at that point now where budget's nice, but I really need to start thinking about points now and start catching up. Everyone else from Alonso down, not interested. So, here's my Team 1. And I'll be honest with you, I know I have Mercedes, but I'm leaning towards saving a transfer. I've not had an extra transfer for a while now, and I think it's leaving me at a disadvantage. So the obvious choice here would be Oliver Bearman. And it would be a case of either Albon, Yuki Tsunoda, or if something feels off with Albon and Tsunoda, they have a crash in practice, they're not on the pace, I may just play safe and go Gasly. The only downside with that is I don't expect to get as many points. So at the moment, all things considered, again, I said this earlier in the video, just because of consistency, I'd probably go Albon. If, for whatever reason, I feel kind of forced into that constructor transfer, then it would be Williams, because I can't afford Red Bull unless I did go down to Gasly and then I can afford Red Bull and save myself a little bit of budget. But like I say, at the moment, I'd rather just make the one transfer and carry an extra one into Spain, because I think Spain is going to be interesting, because I expect there to be a lot more points on offer, and I expect probably a lot of teams will then start to settle on their teams. So like I say, for Team 2, I was setting up for Limitless. Didn't quite go to plan because of Stroll not getting that 1 point. And I do still have Hajar, but I may just cut my losses and go for it anyway. If I did go for Limitless, I think I would probably go Red Bull. I would consider Ferrari just because of the pit stops, but I think Red Bull, if they're looking good. Obviously Norris and Verstappen. I'd then go Russell, and I would go Leclerc because Leclerc won in Monaco last year, and I think he'll be good for this Grand Prix. I mean, I'm saying this, I've got to admit, as I'm recording this, I'm wondering now if I would actually go Hamilton over Russell. I don't know. It'd be a toss-up between Hamilton and Russell if I go Limitless, I think. Something I'd have to think about. That being said, if, for whatever, I decide to back out of Limitless, then again, I would like to carry a transfer into Spain. I think, as much as it pains me, I'd keep Stroll, I'd keep Mercedes, and I'd actually say goodbye to Hajar. And that would leave me with 11 million, so I couldn't go Albon, unfortunately. I could go Sainz. Knowing that I'll probably get a price, I'll probably get a budget hit, but I'll get more points. Or, just because of how hard budget is, could go Gasly. Or I could go Hulkenberg, who's cheaper, I don't know. I think I'd probably go Sainz or Gasly. Possibly Sainz if I want points, or Gasly if I want budget. But again, I think I just want to hold on to... I want to have free transfers available because, again, same as my Team 1, I've not had free transfers for a while, and I feel it's left me at a disadvantage. And then finally, Team 3, I don't plan on playing any chips, which is weird because they still have all their chips. but I can't really do much through. I mean, we'd have to say goodbye to Ocon, let's be honest. Ocon would have to go. In which case, it would be, I guess it'd be Gasly, right? Yeah, it'd have to be Gasly. I could go Sainz. I could actually go a triple Williams, and I don't mind that. I really don't mind that. Alternatively, it would be Gasly. But I think here and right now, I don't mind the triple Williams with the double McLaren. Again, he's got Stroll. But if I decide to use both transfers, then Stroll would be out. And I'd probably go for a budget saver. I'd probably go for someone like a Colapinto just to protect budget. In fact, I actually quite like that. But again, I want to carry free transfers into Spain with all my teams. So, but yeah, I don't mind that at all. So let's talk chips. Honestly, for me personally, I'm thinking of Limitless for my team too, because I was trying to set up for Limitless anyway. But unless you're going for Limitless, unless you're going to use Wildcard to restructure your team, the only one I would consider is No Negative. The only reason I would consider No Negative is because of the high DNF risk at Monaco. That being said, we still have a lot more races to come where we may need that No Negative chip, i.e. Baku, possibly Singapore, Brazil. So we've seen the No Negative can be strong. We saw that in Miami. But it's down to personal choice. Don't, play it at Monaco in case there's DNFs. Or would you rather hold on to it till later in the season because we have still got a long way to go? Otherwise, everything else, not interested. Final fix, I wouldn't even consider. So let's just say, for argument's sake, Max Verstappen crashes in qualifying and he's now going to start P15. He's Max Verstappen, don't get me wrong, but I still wouldn't use Final Fix. It's Monaco. I'm actually going to Comic-Con Saturday, so I'm going to miss free practice 3 and qualifying. That being said, if you're here in the UK, practice 1 is on Friday at 12:30 with practice 2 at 4. Then, as I just mentioned, on Saturday, practice 3 is at 11:30 with qualifying at 3. So remember to lock in your teams before 3 o'clock on Saturday. And then the race is on Sunday at 2 o'clock. And weather-wise, no concerns. It should be dry. I'm recording this video on Monday. This is the Met Office website. It looks fine for weather-wise. Don't expect no issues. And then last season's top 10 is Charles Leclerc, Oscar Piastri, Carlos Sainz, Lando Norris, George Russell, Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, Yuki Tsunoda, Alexander Albon, and Pierre Gasly. And I'll be honest, looking at that right now, it wouldn't surprise me if it's the same 10, but just in a different order. And then finally, we come to GridRivals. So I actually had a good weekend. It's weird. I'm not really paying too much attention to GridRivals now, but I am still playing along. And I got a budget gain. I got quite a bit of a budget gain. Thanks to Albon, Hadjar, Hulkenberg, and Kick Sauber. Lost a little bit of budget with Piastri and Leclerc, but nothing major. Points were great. Climbed the rankings. Albon, Hulkenberg, and Kick Sauber are now out of contract, so I will need to replace them. But no complaints. Very happy weekend in GridRivals, and I believe I've climbed the rankings now in the top 40k, and I've got I would say a decent budget, not the best. I think there's teams at like 120, so, but yeah, I'm not going to complain. 4.1 million price rise. Yeah, all good. So there you are, guys. That is my early team thoughts for Imola. Sorry there was no video last week. I decided to just take a break for just personal medical reasons. So yeah, all good. I'm looking forward to the Grand Prix. Like I say, I will miss FP3 and qualifying because I'm at Comic-Con. So I will be looking in my teams early. I'll be looking in my teams after FP2, either Friday night or Saturday morning. And good luck. And I'll speak to you next week when we get set up for Spain. All the best. Bye.